Hello, Suns fans, and welcome back to another episode of the GC Sunscast. I'm your host, Shane. Joining me is Tom. How's it going, Tom?
Yeah, great. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's really, really busy for me personally, and it's always a struggle to find time to do some of this stuff. But we're here, and we are going to finish off our player ratings from last week. But
yes, this is our week where we were going to have a nice little fortnight between shows to freshen up before the season. But we banged on a bit too much last week. Keep it tight and high. What I'm trying to say is high and tight. We're going to keep it higher and tighter than I just kept it.
All right. Well, in that theme, let's jump straight into our old soul Patreon donors, the people that help support the show, keep us going each and every week, so you can thank them personally for the GC Sunscast. We have Jack's dad, Dale Snelling, Paul Vosti, Tom Kim, Brody Burgess, Kate Kelland, Chris Moore, Robbie Fiorini, Tim, and James Wood. Thank you, guys, and you can join our Patreon donors by heading on over to patreon.com/GC Sunscast. No amount is too little or too much to send our way, and we do our best to put that money back into the club if we're not putting it towards the cost required to keep this show going. Now, before we jump into the AFLW or our player ratings, there's been a bit of news this week regarding the Suns. So let's touch on a couple of topics. The very first is the news that's come out today. It's basically a Victorian-based article talking about the Gold Coast Suns receiving $27 million last year in handouts from the AFL. So it seems like it's a very biased article, doesn't it, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that not every club's even released the amount of money that the AFL gave them. It's not like this is coming from the AFL. I think the next time we go to air, there's a couple of independent media outlets who actually analyse all 18 clubs and what they got and how much they got last year and do the comparisons. And I'll be able to share a chart. And yeah, the Suns get more, but the Suns are in a non-AFL area. The Suns have got massive territory to cover, and that money isn't just money that's going to the club and going down a black hole. That's money to pay for development of the game. We're getting more money than before because now we've got an AFLW team, and that's not cheap to run, even though I don't think they get paid enough. But it's totally justified. And the other thing is we made a profit. So it's reward for fiscal management, I reckon.
Yeah,
for doing good things and investing it, and the AFL's rewarding it.
It's the typical thing that happens this time of year. Bit of Suns bashing. Oh, we're spending so much money on that club. Well, it's very choice in the way it's written. It needs to go on to say that, hey, last week it was reported St Kilda received $24 million. So is $3 million that big of a difference, considering St Kilda are based in Victoria, the Suns are in a struggling region, southeast Queensland, which arguably has more growth potential than Victoria. And not to mention every other club gets around $13 million anyway to cover salary cap payments and anything else that comes their way. So it's really not a huge deal. St Kilda, I think, received $4 million more than the next Victorian club, which would have been $20 million. So it's really blown out of proportion. Tony Cochrane's had a chat with our mate Tom Boswell and had a couple of things to say.
Of course we're going to survive. Over my dead body will we not survive? Of course we...
So Tony Cochrane's come out and said the things he says all the time, which is, how much are we really getting compared to the Victorian clubs? It's justified because of the progress we're having at a development level with participation numbers. And then also throwing in that the AFL wouldn't have all this money in the broadcast rights if it wasn't for Gold Coast and GWS providing an extra game. So just the usual stuff from Tony Cochrane, but he's come out to fight for the club, and that's what we love most. There was also an article 2 days ago from Jake Niall, where Gillan McLaughlin conceded the Suns would be in the competition forever. I say that in air quotes. And again, it seems like it's just along the same consensus that the participation numbers for the Suns is in Southeast Queensland is skyrocketing, and also the impact that the Southeast Queensland is having on AFLW.
No, yeah, well, it's also Northern New South Wales. They're playing, the AFLW team's playing in Mackay this week, which we'll get to later. But that's a great, that's a great sort of investment in footy, is to all the money that's going into those areas. And Lauren Bella, who we'll also talk about, she's from 20k south of Mackay. We've got players who are from that region who are going to be playing on Friday night, first ever Suns Friday night game. You said there wouldn't be a Friday night game in 2020, didn't you, Shane? I think you might have said that about round 23 last year.
Well,
the money is being very well invested, and the returns on the investment that these players, who are still only very young in their first season, first or second seasons, playing top level footy, and representing the region and getting to play in that region, and then the AFLM, we're giving away a home match to go play in Darwin. Now, of course, we're getting access to Darwin talent, and that's part of the reason. But the other part of the reason is the AFL's paying us cold hard cash to go up there, Shane. That's what they do. They say to clubs, we'll give you extra money, but you've got to play in Alice Springs or Darwin or Cairns or China. And so, we repay the investment, and with interest.
So, yeah, great stuff for the Gold Coast Suns. They're going to stick around, and don't read into all this crap. There seems to be a bit of bias just coming from it. So you just really got to look at these articles, who's writing them, and whereabouts they're based, because there's always an agenda. That's just the way media works these days.
Look, remember, like, almost every single year, right at the low point of the off season, the media will come out and say, "Oh, Suns have lost their naming rights sponsor, or they've lost their sponsorships down, whatever." Have you noticed that in the last 12 months we haven't heard anything like that? There hasn't been any headlines saying that the Suns are in sponsorship trouble and that the Suns are losing money. Well, the reason that you're not reading that in the newspaper is that the Suns' sponsorship went up by $6.5 million last year, right? And that's like, it went up from 1.25 million to 7.7 million. That's huge. And if we can sustain that, which these sponsorship deals aren't just for 12 months, they're usually for quite a reasonable amount of time, it's only going to go up. And of course, the women's team coming in, is a lot of those sponsors are for the women's team. So, they're probably responsible for half of that sponsorship increase. So, the Mark Evans era, Tony Cochrane era of the Suns is about fiscal responsibility and growth, and they're doing a bloody great job.
Yeah, they are. And something else they're doing that's different, and we could be talking back on this in several years, is a great job. I got an email today, and I'm sure a lot of Suns members did. It says, "Our club is genuine in our commitment to deeply connect with our community and inspire people to be part of our extraordinary journey. The Gold Coast Suns challenge themselves to provide exceptional experiences for our members, constantly looking for ways to improve and deepen our connection with our fans, yada, yada, yada. We are establishing the GC Suns Members Council. Through our GC Suns Members Council, we will create an open dialogue with you, our members, about your experience, bringing you on the journey of growing our fan base. The GC Suns Member Council representatives will meet bi-monthly to discuss a range of topics aimed at improving our member and fan experience." So it goes on just to ask for nominations and or nominate yourself, and terms and conditions and stuff. So it sounds like the Suns are getting on board, looking for member feedback, and they see this a council, I guess, from members as a way to discuss with members and find out what they can do to improve things. So it's very interesting there. But if you go into the terms and conditions, there's a few things which stand out. Obviously, you have to be a Suns member, a paying member, and you need to be able to attend the meetings, at least 4 per year. But there's a couple of things that it says. The first is, I understand that this is not a board with decision-making capabilities, but an advisory council of select and diverse Gold Coast Suns members who will offer advice and suggestions on matters relating to the Gold Coast Suns. So that's just acknowledging that you have no power. What are your thoughts on all this, Tom?
Yeah, well, at first you see the bright shiny, GC members council, and you think, oh wow, okay, this is a bit of democracy coming to the Suns, but I think it's far from that. I think it sounds interesting. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of eclectic group of passionate supporters, and no doubt there'll be a lot of opinions and the kind of thing that we've seen before, haven't we? They do sort of open forums and things like that, where people after games and that kind of thing are able to sort of say their piece, and there are certain members only kind of events. But this sounds like it's a bit more formalised, and they're going to sort of choose out of the self-nominations and, the kinds of people. I imagine that there'll be an equal representation between men and women, and, it's almost a bit like a jury, isn't it? That's sort of what it sounds like. But
it is.
Yeah, it's not my bag.
It's going to be interesting how they select these things. People, they're going to have 21 members. Again, ensuring a broad cross-section of membership types, tenure and demographics. A couple of other things that jump out to me is I am not to use this as a forum to express concerns related to team performance or team-related issues. And I recognise that if I divulge confidential information or attempt to represent the club in any capacity, that my position on the Gold Coast Suns member council is subject to review and termination without notice.
Sorry, I do have to laugh, because I can imagine people would take it very, very seriously, and people, when they're given sensitive information, people always let the secret out. In this day and age, we've got social media, so it's not as though they're gossiping over the back fence. If they said one thing controversial, or if something happened in the meeting, within 24 hours, everyone who wants to know about that kind of thing will know about it. So, yeah, they can't control it in that way. It's a bit ambitious.
That's exactly right. And, I mean, who isn't going to say, oh, they're on the Gold Coast Suns Members Council, to their mates or people they know, even a random Suns supporter? And, there's a bit of bragging to that and stuff like that, but are you really turning around saying, I represent the football club? I mean, in a way you are, because you're on a club elected council. But on the other hand of that, I mean, you've got no power to control anything. They've made that clear in the terms and conditions. And look, it's a little weird. Also, it's going to rule out a lot of people if they can't comment on team performances.
That's true. Look, at the end of the day, my prediction is that it'll be, a fair amount of people venting on things that they don't like, but it could be productive. I mean, if someone was to ask me what my experience just this year with the Suns, well, I was pretty pissed off when I walked out of the practice match and there's no bus taking me back to the train station, so I had to walk. So I could have got an Uber, but it's just that distance where you can walk, and so you do, rather than waste your money on an Uber. But it might have been something to just put one bus out.
Yeah.
50 people.
The whole travel with Metricon Stadium, getting to and from, seems to be the major gripe everyone has with it. It's been the talk of the town all this week so far because of the Queen concert on the weekend at Metricon. And we know a lot of Suns fans get a bit aggravated with the car parking situation there. It's just the fact, there isn't the greatest public transport system set up to service that precinct. And people still rely very much on their cars here on the Gold Coast because it is so widely spread.
There's going to be the what's it called, the Hoppo, the ferry that's going to be dropping people off at Riverside at the stadium on game days this year. So that'll be an interesting. I think that'll actually be quite an enjoyable way to arrive at the game, to be honest.
It should be, because that side, the Riverside and the eastern side, hardly ever get used as far as exiting or entry at the football club. It's all done through the southern side and the western side. So it becomes a bit of a bottleneck there where all the buses are. But if they can find a way to utilise the surrounding sides of that ground, it creates less of a bottleneck, and obviously a ferry going all the way into Broadbeach would solve a lot of the congestion for the buses down that way.
Yeah, they've got to put a tram in there eventually too, don't they? Because there's room for it. You just stick a tram up the guts and it goes straight to the train station, straight into Broadbeach. People will be on and off at all times of the day and night.
All right. Well, to close up on this topic, because we need to get to the footy, I have nominated. I'd be silly not to. I don't think the club's going to take me seriously because I do this show, but I guess there's more likelihood that I'm actually going to say something I shouldn't. But in the end, I've got we here at the GC Sunscast have a connection with Suns fans, and we can sort of be a mediator and help get that message across. So I just feel like we'd be a natural fit, but the club will probably see that differently. All right, let's jump into, actually before we jump into the AFLW, let's have a quick chat about the State of Origin, because we had a Suns representative there, Lockie Weller. We also had Stuart Dew in the coach's box for the Allies and Dean Solomon in the coach's box for the Victorians. And I guess Dean Solomon was the only winner that night, coming home with the win with his side. But Lockie Weller had a great game, didn't he?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, the pace of the game and the way that the All-Stars were playing that first half was just fantastic. He didn't look out of place whatsoever. And I thought he had one of the more difficult roles, and he was getting in there and laying tackles, and the rest of the team were playing pretty bruise-free footy. So Lockie, outdid himself. Good on him. One or two clangers, but I think every player out there, they were taking it seriously to that point where they were trying as hard as they could. But if they stuffed something up, they just shook it off, and it didn't matter. So, he'll be better off for the performance. That goal that he scored, that same play that we pulled off, he drilled it behind. So I think the step up gave him a lift in confidence, and hopefully he can translate that back to the Gold Coast team.
Yeah, he certainly didn't look out of place among all the stars that were on the field that night. I'd say, like, off the top of my head, I think he had 18 disposals, and I think the pleasing thing about all that was actually his disposal efficiency was in the 80s, I think. Yeah. So really, really positive signs for Lockie Weller. If he's performing to that level for the Suns, he's having an impact.
Well, he got a bunch of inside 50s and score involvements, and he's the speedy player on the end of a chain of handballs and playing his part in the link, and that's the kind of play that we need from him. He was a bit rusty back at Metricon the other day, so good to see that he's putting it all together. And him and Ellis sort of bringing the ball off the halfback flank and taking it up the wing. Yeah, or bringing it back through the inside corridor. Geez, it's just going to be poetry in motion.
Well, we'll talk more about Weller and Ellis. No, we spoke about Ellis last week. So we'll talk more about Weller when we get to our player ratings. Let's go into the AFLW. So the Suns women's played North Melbourne and unfortunately went down 47-34. It was actually a really good game. The Suns women...
It wasn't it, yeah.
They brought a real ferocity and contest that we saw against Brisbane, except for maybe lapse in concentration in the second half of the second quarter. I thought the Suns women's side were pretty dominant for most of that game, and if we'd taken our scoring shots a bit better, we probably could have got the win, or at least got it a lot closer. And North Melbourne is supposed to be the team to beat in the AFLW. So to get as close as we did, they've thrashed the other teams they've played this year, haven't they?
Oh, they're unstoppable. They did lose in the first round against Melbourne, but Melbourne are a very, very highly rated team as well. So to stay in it right up until the last couple of minutes, that's quite an achievement considering this team's only played 4 games, and it's not even like the Suns were winning any of the practice matches or anything either. Like the winter series last year and the practice matches leading up to it, the Suns were just getting beaten week after week after week. I was a bit worried about them, but I'm not worried anymore. I'm actually pretty bullish. The Conference A is slightly weaker in terms of head-to-head A and B matches where the Conference B teams have been winning most of them, means that the Suns could potentially make finals with 4 wins and 1 draw. And that means beating Geelong this week, because Geelong are a head-to-head, would be knocking them out of finals contention. And it means, obviously, we already played the Giants, so that's a bit of a bummer, but Brisbane did us a favour by beating them. So we've got the Giants. We need to beat Adelaide. That's really the big one, because if we can beat Adelaide, that's an 8-point game where we can leapfrog them, stop them from going further ahead, and at the same time get our own ladder position. And we don't have to worry about percentage too much because we've got the draw. So in an 8-round season, having that draw, we could miss out on finals by 2 points, or we could just sneak in. In Conference B, there could very well be a team on 5 wins who doesn't make the finals. That's what happened to the Kangaroos last year, which is why they've really got a fire in their belly this year to make finals and to sort of go somewhere. But the good news is, Shane, our prediction for Q Clash 2 in the finals is still alive, and Brisbane have been doing their part by winning. So all we got to do is turn things around this Friday night at the Great Barrier Reef Stadium in Mackay.
Well, you've pretty much summed it all up there, but I don't know who we're playing.
Geelong.
Okay.
And Geelong have been really good. They just keep losing. It's one of those teams. They won on the weekend. They played Richmond, who've never won anything. But then again, the Suns beat Richmond, so it should be a good matchup. Geelong are a decent team. They just have to show that they can do it 3,000 kilometres away from Geelong.
Yeah.
Should be a tall order for them, I reckon.
Well, before we move on, I just want to touch on a couple of individual performances from that AFLW game. Kalinda Howarth and Jamie Stanton and Ahrens, as usual, fantastic. They're having a great season, those 3 girls. And we're seeing sparks of brilliance coming from some of the other girls. In particular, this was the game for Lauren Bella. She absolutely shone in the ruck. And not just the ruck, but she was getting around the ground, being a great target, taking marks. The only thing you could really add to her bow would be send her down forward and kick a goal or 2. But
that's right. It'll happen.
Bella's been really great, so she's come a long way. And
well, this is what happens when you play in the top grade. You at the first game of the year, the conditions didn't suit her. It was muddy and wet and disgusting, but she still battled away and learnt out of the game. And then each performance since then, she's just taking strides forward. It's actually, it would take. I don't like to compare AFL men and women because they're vastly different, and you shouldn't compare them. But when you see a player in the AFL men's improve by the end of a year or between years, you think, oh, gee, he's improved a lot. Well, she's improving that much from game to game. It's just what you've said. It'd be nice to see her kick a goal up forward. She'll do it on Friday night. I guarantee it.
All right. Well, you can probably buy me a beer next time we meet at the footy if she doesn't. All right. The other thing is Kate Sermon's been nominated for Goal of the Year for her brilliant goal in the start of the third quarter.
Yeah, I didn't see it live because I was washing the dishes and in a bit of a bad mood because I thought we were going to get a flogging, and then Katie Sermon's just gone, I'm going to take this game by the scruff of the neck and kick a goal.
And the other nomination we need to give out is for Kate Pregelli or Pregelli. Pregelli.
Just like your jelly.
She wasn't named
before jelly.
She wasn't named in the best, which is unusual. But
that's weird because she was the best player.
She made it onto the team of the week for round 4 for the AFLW on the bench, I think. So that's fantastic news to get another Suns player in there. And with that, let's move on to finishing up our ratings for the men's. Now, where we left off last week, we had Sam Day.
Mm-hmm.
So
number 12, Sam Day.
Do we
13, Jack Lukosius.
All right, you're up with Lukosius then.
All right, so Jack's, really only in the. I can't remember exactly how many games he's played in the back line, but I'm going to say about 10. So he's still learning the craft and adapting, but he just has such class and such skills. 18 possessions, which is we're looking sort of for a 20 possession player off halfback that he can provide with that height to make a contest in the mark. So he's doing everything that we're asking, and his disposal was 72%, which is average. It could be better, but I just think if he had his time again, he'll look at the tape. And he'll do better next time. So I was encouraged by his performance. What did you think?
Yeah, Lukosius did a couple of good things, but he did seem a bit behind the ball. But that, some players are going to struggle at the start. If we move on now to number 14, Lockie Weller. Same sort of thing we saw in the State of Origin game on the weekend. His dash looked really good when he got it. Had a couple of shots on goal, but they missed. So if he can just fix his kicking, his accuracy, which he did in that State of Origin game, we'll be loving what he can do. Number 15 is Noah Anderson. What were your thoughts on him?
Well, look, every time he gets it, he's just clean and skillful. And he's getting in positions where players sometimes they burn him. He's in a good position and they'll go for a riskier angle. So when he is getting honoured, he's doing good things with it. So it's only his second hit out with the team. The first sort of official hit out the week before, I thought he was much the same. He connected a few times with Rowley, so that's something that the two of them bring as a package. So if we're going to see that, that's the thing to look forward to, is the combination of the two. But yeah, he's the answer out on the wing long term. He's got all the skills. Very nice little goal. The commentators called it very well there. He had the presence of mind as he's picking up the ball, just to sort of jink away from the movement of the other players and just give himself an open shot at goal and just dribbled it through. Easy as you like.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't been doing the actual rating part, have we? I think we've been classifying it as lock, possible, probable, that sort of stuff. I would say Weller is a lock, and I would argue that Anderson and Lukosius are in the same boat, where you'd like them to be locks, but depending on positioning, who we're playing, it's going to... They're likely the ones that may get dropped or maybe moved around to fill the team flexibility. So probably in the probables.
Anderson seems to me to be... He's in the 22 if Rankin's not ready for round 1. Or he's in the 22 if they decide to choose between Wright and Day and they don't take both.
Yeah.
So if they take Day, Wright and King, where do you put Anderson? And where do you put Rankin? So unfortunately, they have to decide on the game plan, and it's not him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd be playing him, and they will. It'll happen eventually.
So we'll save all that team talk for another episode after we've seen the Marsh Series 2, and we will put out what we think is the best 22 for round 1. Mm-hmm. Moving on, number 18, Matthew Rowell. He couldn't have been more impressive in his first game for the Suns. He can find the ball. He was everywhere. 7 disposals in the first quarter, 7 again in the second, so he was 14 at halftime. And then they took him off in that second half, gave him a nice little rest. He only ended up playing 44% time on ground.
Wow.
He was fantastic, sensational. He was in almost everything in that first half, and that was when the game was really on the line and when Geelong were, putting their best side out there and actually giving a damn. So, fantastic effort for Matt Rowell, and I would go ahead and say he's a lock.
Yeah, he is. And the one play that sealed it for me was sort of along the 50-metre arc, and he just sniffed the ball, and the Geelong players, were in the best position, but he just went after it, and he just got a knock on it and a touch on it, and he went after it. And he was like a snake. He just went after it, and he was about to clean up his own sort of ball, but Connor Butterick come through and picked it up and dobbed it for that goal from 50. But it was all Matt Rowell. Like, it was not Gold Coast ball. It was about to be cleared out of defensive 50 and to Geelong's advantage. And Rowell just made something from nothing. And that's where his best football comes from. It's not necessarily all of the flashy things he does. It's the 1%ers.
Yeah,
and Rowell, that's a really good sign.
And Rowell wasn't the only other bloke doing that for the Suns in the midfield. Our next player, number 21, Hugh Greenwood, he was just as prevalent, and
he was the best on the ground.
Yeah, I just love the way you see him get tackled, and he's got enough composure to shrug off the tackle or hold up himself long enough to get a clean handball or kick away.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's something usually when an opposition player touches the Suns player, the ball goes straight to the ground or is spilled or it's a turnover. So it's just really pleasing to see someone with that much being able to withstand that much and persevere.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's had good training at Adelaide. Certainly, coming from a basketball background, these are sort of things that are, skills that he's got. But yeah, he's been behind the Crouch brothers at Adelaide, so he's just going to get first crack at running through the guts. And if you notice from the very opening bounce, he grabbed the ball, raced out straight away, kicked it inside 50. Our big guys went up for it. It set the tone for the whole game. He had 30 pressure acts. Now, we thought little Darcy McPherson was great running around with his 26 pressure acts. Greenwood had 30 pressure acts, and you didn't even necessarily notice it. He was just there and up in their face, and it caused mistakes.
And that's why the club got him. So, as far as I'm concerned, Hugh Greenwood, lock him in, throw away the key. Next up is Sean Lemons, player number 23. What are your thoughts on Lemons? It was a pretty good game for him, wasn't it?
It was. He's just so hard at it. I mean, that goal that he kicked in the first quarter, that was from his pressure. You don't need to go at the ball that hard when it's that close to the sideline, but he did, and he got caught high, and he got a free kick for it. It was a reward for just being there. He makes very hard tackles. The players do not get straight back up. He's got such speed. He seems to get faster every year. And it seems to me that he's got the right body shape finally, and he's really putting himself up there, because for the first time in a long time, the availability of small forward spots is, there's 6-7 guys all going for 4 spots or 3 spots. So he might not be a lock.
I think
he's putting in a pretty bloody good resume.
He's been hovering around that possible barrier for several years now, and I think now he's pushed himself into the probable if he can keep up that performance. So if we move on, we've got David Swallow, the captain. He no longer needs to be that battering ram, is what I took from the game. He was able to utilise his outside skill and class, and that's something we don't often get to see with Swallow. I think the last time we really saw that was last year in that St Kilda game where he went forward and kicked a few goals. So being able to play a midfield role without being the number one bloke in the middle will be very handy for Swallow, and I'm hoping we'll see the best of him this year. He had 79% time on ground, and I thought he did just as much as he needed to do to show he's ready to be locked for round one.
Oh, too right. And it was his first hit out, so if he was a little bit wayward with a bit of his disposal, which he's never had the best disposal, but it's not his job. His job's to get in there and push it forward and give us the momentum. He got a great opportunistic goal when Sexton kind of probably should have been given a free kick. And the hint is that he'll get a bit of time in the forward line. That's sort of been the hint in the way they've been naming the teams.
Yeah.
So he started forward, went into the midfield, but there were a couple of times when he was up forward, and I like it because historically we know that when he rests forward, he's a good chance of getting a goal.
Okay, we're down to 8 minutes, Tom. So to get through this list, I need you to keep very short and precise. All right.
Sure.
So next up is number 25, Sam Collins. What are your thoughts?
Well, he's now our best tall defender, which isn't taking away from young Caleb Graham. It's just Collins has got the experience and the bulk, and he's going to be the core of our defence.
So lock him in.
He's in, and did really well.
All right, and number 29, Chris Burgess.
A little erratic, but I think we're seeing now that they thought he was going to be a full forward, and now they're kind of realising that he's a backman. So I like him. I don't know if he's going to be in the 22.
Well,
is it possible?
He is listed as key defender on the Suns website, so that must be where they see him. Number 30, Peter Wright. He had a game of two sides. We saw him early impose himself on the game, but he just couldn't get those marks. And later, as the game went on, he finally got a goal. I think he might have actually finished up with two. No, just the one. So he's still got a lot to do, but he's getting there. He hasn't cemented his spot in the 22 yet, I think. I think he's still a probable. And moving on, player number 31, Jordan Murdock. What have you got to say about him?
We have to see more of him. He didn't play much of the game. When he was on the field, he was out of position. I think they had him in a forward line for a bit, and just don't know what the game plan was there, and sort of suspect that they just needed someone to do something, and they went, "Oh, you go do this." Don't know.
It seems like he was just there for the running around, just to get a little bit of game time into him. Let's move on. Player number 32, Zack Smith, returns to the Suns. And look, he did better than I thought he would do, but I did not like him getting the football anywhere but in the ruck. He took several marks and looked good that way, but he'd then go and try and kick the ball, and I think 80% of his kicks were shanks. I do not want to see him kick a ball. A coach once told me, if you're a ruckman, don't ever kick, just handball. And I kind of feel like that's what he needs to be doing. Let's move on. Player number 33, George Holland-Smith. Did he? No, he didn't play.
He didn't play.
34, Ben King. So, fantastic. Ben King. Highlight of the night was selling the candy and kicking that beautiful goal.
Yeah,
he's locked and loaded. He's our full forward for the next 10 years if we can keep him around. Great stuff, Ben King. And number 35, Connor Butterick.
Yeah, great. Good on you, Connor. We really liked hearing the 15 different pronunciations of his name. Look, he's doing some great little things. I feel like the pace of the game's a bit much for him, but he's fast and he's a fast learner. So, there's a lot of people reckon he's going to be playing AFL Ground 1. Don't know where or how that will happen because we believe Harbrow and Hanley will come back into the team. So, does all right down back. He's still learning it. I want to see more of him.
He looked really good. I really like the look of him. And next player, number 37, Jeremy Sharp. It's the same thing.
Hopefully he starts this week, and we see what he's like in a full game, and we get to see his defence and get to see. I did see him in the practice game the week before, and he was excellent. So want to see more. But he was just having fun, wasn't he? Kicking the big 50-metre bombs, and I think one of them was a torp. But good on him, Sharpie. He could very well be worth the investment already.
Yeah. Number 38, Jesse Joyce. He's got his work cut out for him if he's going to break back into the Suns side. But I thought he was good. He was good without being amazing. He was composed. He works hard. So if he keeps up that attitude and applies himself every game, he's in with a shot.
Yeah, his position in the team, like the position he plays, it's got to suck the worst because he's going to have Specky's taken over his head if he's in front on the mark, or going for the mark. He's going to end up looking a bit silly because there are players who are more talented, faster, more experienced than him who are going to make him. Gary Rowan made the defence look pretty ordinary a few times.
Okay,
so when
next
you
up,
take that into perspective, Jesse Joyce does 6 or 8 things that are really good and a couple of things that look stupid. So I think he's doing well, but all right. Toss of the coin.
Okay, so next up is Jasmine Clennon, number 43.
Look, he was solid, but just like Butterick, the game's maybe a bit fast for him. Give him a few matches in the NEAFL and see how he performs. I think he'll play AFL this year, though.
Okay, I'd be surprised if he does. I think he's got a lot of work ahead of him still. But, he's only in his second year, so he needs that bit of extra time. Number 44, Darcy McPherson. Man, he was everywhere. He's a little pocket rocket. I said a few years ago, he's the barometer of the Suns. He's our most important player. And if he plays like that every week, he is not going to do me any damage.
Yeah, the one thing you want to see is goals instead of behinds. But if he's going to have, he can't have a perfect performance.
Yeah, 31 disposals, 450 metres gained, 89% time on ground. It was a 5-star game for McPherson, and his awareness to hit Sexton in that second quarter was fantastic. It's not too many AFL players can do that, so Bulldogs are kicking themselves that they missed that opportunity. We have a minute left, Tom, so quick. Caleb Graham, he brilliant marks, composed. He is going to be our backup key defender if we get injuries to our first choice players.
He may play round 1 because Thompson's a ways off and deserves it. He's playing well. He's got composure. He can play, the kid.
Okay, so have we missed anyone? Do you have anyone else to cover? No?
No, that's everyone.
All right, so that's a great review. We're looking forward to seeing the Suns players play on Friday against Adelaide, 3:50 p.m. Queensland time. So check out that on KO, Fox Sports, if you can't watch it live at the game. That will do us for now. We've got to wrap up, Tom. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening, Suns fans. And we'll be back next week to discuss all the latest from that Adelaide game.
We will.
Go Suns.